fellow at the Atlantic Council. He joins us live now from New York. Jamie, it's been a while. So good to see you. So let's talk about.
Nice to see you.
Let's talk about President Macron in Beijing, in China. Obviously, part of his goal, I mean, he's there for many reasons, but part of his goal is to try to persuade China to bring about some kind of peace in terms of what's happening with the war in Ukraine. How realistic is that? Is that realistic, or would you say that was just wishful thinking at this point, given what's going on?
It's not very realistic. China has been very clear from the beginning that their no limits friendship with Russia is essentially a support for Russia's activity in the Ukraine. If China wanted to deliver a different message, they certainly could do so. But there's an important interest of certainly of Europe and the United States and others, and that is keeping China out of the war more fully and preventing them or trying to encourage them to not more fully militarily support the Russians, which would have the potential to be a real game changer and a morale boost. So that's what Macron and the European Commission President von der Leyen are trying to do. And what the Chinese are trying to do is to triangulate the Europeans, to separate them in many ways from the Americans, and essentially dangle minimal help in Ukraine in exchange for greater commercial ties and Europe not aligning with the United States on trade.
Just in terms of Macron's goals when it comes to peace, though, I'm curious, how much sway do you think Xi Jinping actually has over Vladimir Putin? I mean, obviously, he does have leverage from a military assistant perspective. But in terms of actual sway over Putin, in terms of getting him to end this war, how much sway do you think he has at all?
If Xi Jinping decided that it was a high priority to end this war, he could end the war literally in 5 seconds. All he would need to do is to say that China 100% does not support the war, calls on Russia to withdraw all of its troops from Ukrainian territory, and will join sanctions against Russia if that doesn't happen. If Xi Jinping says those words, the war will be over in minutes.
That is an interesting. There are other experts that I've spoken to, especially today, who have actually said that Xi Jinping doesn't have that much sway in terms of ending this war. But it's interesting to hear your perspective. In terms of Europe's hard-hit economy, how much does Europe need the Chinese market, just from a trade and financial perspective?
No, the Chinese market is hugely important to Europe, as it is to many countries and to many regions. The challenge that Europe faces is that in recent years and decades, it's believed that it could get cheap oil from Russia, economic growth from China, and free, essentially, security from the United States. And Europe now recognizes that none of those three premises are viable unless Europe takes a much more significant role in determining its own fate. And so that's why Macron, at least I hope, is recognizing that trade and security and military relations and transatlantic relations are all bound together. If the Europeans try to negotiate some kind of separate economic deals with the Chinese to gain benefits from this moment, that would be a terrible mistake.
All right, Jamie.